Broadcasting live from atop the Rocky Mountains, the crossroads of the West. You are listening to the Liberty Roundtable Radio Talk Show.
All right, back with you live, ladies and gentlemen. Sam Bushman on your radio. Hard-hitting news the networks refuse to use. No doubt continues now. This is the broadcast for March 5th in the year of our Lord, 2025, hour 2 at 2, promoting God, family, country, protecting life, liberty, and property, rejecting revolution unless it's the Jesus revolution. Then we're in. James Edwards with me, thepoliticalcesspool.org talk show host, author, and a whole lot more. We're talking about Trump's incredible delivery last night. Democratic lawmakers booed Trump's speech, but the people loved it. And that's really the takeaway that you got to know. The people loved it. He highlighted so many great things. We're covering them now. Tariffs explained, James. Do you want to speak to this one? He did highlight his effort on tariffs, and I support tariffs, James.
I don't have the any notes on tariffs in front of me, and I don't have an article pulled up. I will tell you it was a huge, we're going back to, look, why do we continue to mention, or why do I continue to mention Buchanan so much? Well, there's a lot of reasons for it. I mean, not the least of which being that it was Buchanan's issues that propelled Trump to.
It was the incubator campaign for what we see full grown right now.
It absolutely was. This has been something that has been documented in the establishment media, and I'll get to your point on tariffs, but it has been documented in the media, not as much as I think it should have been or should be. But basically, I mean, I was there in 2000 when Donald Trump, President Trump, challenged Buchanan for the Reform Party's nomination for president in 2000, and God's will be done. You know, if Trump had actually won that nomination, it would have probably just sort of regulated him to being, just this fringe,
like a Ross
wasn't
Perot.
really serious,
right? Because he's famous, but yet it wouldn't have flown.
But yeah, he did want it, but he was blocked by the Buchanan delegates, and I was one of them. And I was there when this happened, and it was, I think, astonishing to Trump that he couldn't just go in there and get this thing that he thought he wanted at the time, because these Buchanan people, were so fiercely loyal. And I think he saw there that is where the energy was in American politics, that he as he had always had this ability to find undervalued properties in real estate, he was able to find an undervalued political property. And 16 years later, Trump reemerges, by and large, with Buchanan's platforms, and the rest is history.
With a mixture between Buchanan and Ron Paul and Ronald Reagan platform, kind of all three to a great degree.
That's right. It wasn't entirely Buchanan,
but it was significant. Buchanan set the stage for sure. Buchanan said what people were afraid to say before, and after Buchanan, people were willing to say it.
Well, specifically on immigration and foreign policy and trade, and that gets back
Amen.
to your point. So these are the three fundamental pillars of Buchananism that Trump was able to take and incubate and repackage himself as a candidate that was entirely different than the candidate Trump presented himself to be in 2000. Well, he was basically just sort of like a moderate leftist, calling Buchanan a Nazi and things like that, and then he comes back with all of Buchanan's ideas. That has been covered in mainstream press, and we have certainly talked about it a lot. But you ask about
and this is the
tariff.
shift, and this is the shift that you've been bringing up to where, hey, the Democratic Party is nothing like it once was. It used to be a lot of blue dog Democrats, meaning people who wanted to save money, and the old Democrat. The new Democrats just flat out off the rails, and the American people see it, and they don't want any part of it. The Republicans were super, George Bush-esque, if you will, and now, hey, that's changed too. So there's been a lot of changes. Pat Buchanan was pivotal. So was Ron Paul, pivotal in the setting the stages for those changes to be complete.
That's absolutely right. And then now their ideas have taken center stage. The new media has taken center stage. I'm reading some of the media's reaction to this, and it's just so irrelevant now. So irrelevant. But you asked about tariffs. So Buchanan wrote a book called The Great Betrayal that was written.
And the point was no free trade. We want fair trade, right?
It talks about tariffs. It talks about trade that puts American interests first. And it is true. It is true that when you are transitioning from this globalist entity when it comes to trade and manufacturing, I mean, that was a big part of the book, manufacturing and all of this, that you are going to pay more in the short term. There's no doubt about it. I mean, these tariffs are going to cause prices to go up, at least in the short
not if you
term.
get rid of the income tax.
Well, then there's that. That is a great point, and those should be joined together. Those should be joined together to balance,
and that's
to balance
my point.
it out.
All right, so tariffs explained. Trump basically said, hey, my trade policies will remain centered around tariffs that are designed to boost foreign investment in the United States and to balance a lot of our trade deficits. If you don't make your product in America, you'll pay a tariff. I want people to make products in America. Anyway, then he talks about 25% tariffs on goods from Canada, Mexico. Other countries have used tariffs against us for decades. Now it's time for us to use tariffs. Critics have suggested that it will just create inflation. But Trump said there'll be a little disturbance, but we're okay with that. And my response is this. There's a little bit of both play here. It will be a disturbance, but what you've got to do is bring relief to the American people. If you're bringing in money from a different source, offset it in a meaningful way to the American people. Now, the next conversation is Doge. Doge findings highlighted. Donald Trump did a masterful job at this, James.
It was hilarious. I mean, when he was just going off, just a random sampling of waste and just absurd things that American taxpayer dollars are being spent on, and none of them in and of themselves are a silver bullet that's going to balance the budget and put things right. I mean, you're talking about tens of millions of dollars here, maybe hundreds of millions there, and things like that. But it does add up. There's no doubt that it adds up.
He proved it. I mean, the amount of the numbers that he said, and I didn't get a chance to total them all up, but it's big money.
It's very big money. He calls them scams that are being swiftly terminated. I mean, and again, I laughed out loud at several of the examples that he cited. And of course, he was drawing on some of the most absurd examples, I'm sure, to solidify support for what they're doing. But I mean, it's just, my God, the graft.
It remains valuable, nevertheless, right?
Graft, waste, it is valuable, and it does add up. And, I mean, just so much of it was just going to line the pockets of the opposition. I mean, there was, money that was being spent to like, prop up groups. Like, USAID was paying the, I didn't know this at the time. I probably could have figured it out if I thought about it. But, we have done all of this stuff at a net loss in terms of, dollars and cents, whereas the left, for every action, has to be paid for it. I mean, so when they were agitating to dig up, I mean, this ghoulish, terrible thing to dig up the graves of General and Mrs. Nathan Bedford Forrest in Memphis. But when they were agitating for that in Memphis and they finally did it, the people, it's come out that the people who were the prime movers for that down here we're being paid through USAID. So,
yeah,
I mean, all
sure.
of this stuff, and now without this money flowing to the left, they're not going to work for free. They're not going to do like we've done, for all of our lives. They're just not going to do it. And without that money, and if Doge is cutting that off, that is nature going to be healing itself in ways that we can't even factor in yet.
Amen. There's no question. So here's what Trump said about it in one line: by slashing all of the fraud, waste, and theft we can find, we will defeat inflation, bring down mortgage rates, lower car payments and grocery prices, protect our seniors, and put more money in the pockets of American families, Trump said. Now, do you believe it, James? I do, actually. I think there's a big start for this, but it's, again, going to take us working together. But I think he's on track.
I absolutely do. And yes, it will drive prices up in the short term, but prices have been going up for the last 5 years with no long-term benefit, even being
with no plan to correct it, no plan to change it. Right?
Exactly. So you were just going further to the left, further to the woke, getting nothing in return. If you were actually investing in things that are going to benefit America, put America first, help American people, even if, look, it's going to take a little bit of time for these tariffs to start balancing out. It's going to take time to hopefully dismantle the IRS. These things aren't going to happen between the next few months, maybe, when you're going to see home prices probably go up because of lumber, and Canada saying they're not going to export, to the United States, and you're going to have lumber prices go up. But the price for drywall is going to go up. A lot of that's imported from places like Spain, if you can believe it, but it's all imported mostly. And so you're going to see things go up in the short term. But I am happy to suffer that short term for the benefits it could have for decades to come. And that's a total change from.
And we'll get into Zelensky in a minute. But what Trump does is push really hard on something, and you think it's bad, and then he backs off, and the sweet spot is way better than you think. So, the art of the deal kind of comes to mind here a little bit. One of the things that he said was he promised a balanced budget. Trump also formalized plans to balance the federal budget during his second term. He said, I want to do what has not been done in almost 24 years. That's balance the budget. It's a long-time goal of many Republicans, Trump taking the lead on it. And anyway, he wrote balanced budget in all caps on True Social. Now, here's the bottom line, is it would require substantial spending cuts or substantial increases in government revenue. I support that 100%, and I think we're doing both. With DOGE and with tariffs, we are changing both sides of that. When you deal with both ends of that equation and somehow you meet in the middle, it's surprising how much you can get done, James. I agree with this.
This is the key, Sam, and you nailed it. If Americans are going to pay more for goods and services and whatever as a result of the tariffs, which they might,
which they are,
which they certainly will. They certainly will for the short term.
But it's fine.
But if you alleviate the stress that the IRS puts on them, then you're golden. And I think for a lot of people you'll be better than golden, because at least the things you purchase are a consumption tax. You're not taking something a man earns through his hard work and time away from family. That is sick. That is sick, and it's evil, frankly.
But you're also creating competition, too, with these different countries, too, to say, hey, who can have lower tariffs? How do you have lower tariffs? You cooperate with the free markets. You do all these things. It's going to spur competition internationally. And so far, hey, it's just been in the communist Chinese hands, and there hasn't really been competition. This is going to spur competition, too.
This anti-American government we've had for decades, and I'm not talking about any administration in particular, but all of them that have gutted American manufacturing and industry. I mean, why would you have ever thought that would have been a good idea unless your charge was to intentionally inflict damage upon the long-term prospects of America? It's going to take a little bit of time.
Their plan. Right.
Well, it was, and it's going to take a little bit of time to start to turn that around. It will take decades to correct it, but it's going to take a little time. I mean, to turn it around. I was reading in an article here yesterday, or maybe even this morning. There's like one or two fully functional lumber mills in all the United States. Hey, can you believe that? I mean, I'm talking about
but Trump's changing that. He focused on, hey, there's a lot of power plants that have been closed. We're going to be opening those up. We're going to be, so if we start doing more and more and more in America, I think we're off to the races. Now, one of the things he said in this is part of achieving this, meaning the balanced budget and et cetera, would be a gold card program in which foreigners could pay $5 million for a path to citizenship. He believes there's going to be tons of those. What do you think of the gold card?
It's better than the green card. I mean, I'd like to see who's coming in. I'd like for the people. Look, if you're going to be bringing in immigrants, I'd rather them be wealthy and people who can produce jobs or things like that than leeches, welfare leeches. I mean, there's no doubt about that. I would still want them to be compatible with the core of what American identity is, which is, of course, an extension of Europe. I don't know. I mean, but does this open the door for Europeans to come over? Because, I mean, frankly, basically you had to be third world to get over here.
No, hold on. It will bring in rich people. It'll bring in talent. It'll bring in jobs. It'll bring in people from Europe. It'll bring in all those things. Now, think about this. If it's $5 million to buy one of these things, of course, I can't buy one. But if you did that, and let's say you got, how many people do you think you can get to do this? 100,000?
Well, I mean, now, is it $5 million per person? So if you're bringing a family of four over, it's $20 million?
No, I think it's, I don't know that.
Right, maybe that would follow.
But even if you brought in 100,000 people that could bring $5 million, do you realize that's $500 billion?
And then you've got $500 billion that he's trying to get back from Zelensky through rare earth minerals, and then you got $1 trillion right there. You start banging out trillions at a time.
Talking money, buddy.
You're talking
So
about.
I don't have a problem with the gold card, and I'll tell you why. It's nothing different than the
I
green
know.
card.
I actually
all
do
it does
not.
is reward. It brings in people that can produce jobs, James.
With the green card, you get to come over for free, and maybe you can do a job, maybe you don't, But could an American not do that job to begin with? $5 million, you're not going to be bringing in the dregs, that's for sure. I mean, you're going to be bringing in people who are serious players and have done something to accumulate that wealth that could probably be transferred here to the United States. And whether they're, I'd like to see it mostly Europeans, but if you're talking about, there's a lot of rich Saudi Arabians and Indians, but I don't even know if they, the Saudi Arabians probably wouldn't even want to come over here because the culture is so different. But maybe you're going to get some Indians, you're going to get a hodgepodge. Okay, I get that,
Well,
but you're getting them anyway.
This, though, James. This sets the stage, though, to say, hey, all these rich people have had to come in, and they paid dearly to get here. Now, you illegals that are here, we're going to have to start putting you on a payment plan, too.
Well, I'd like to see them just gone. They're definitely.
Yeah, they're not going to be gone. We just talked about the numbers. They're not deporting them near fast enough, buddy.
Well, maybe that gets, again, he did say last night what a person says and what he does. He has made a huge down payment, though, on his campaign promises this first month.
Oh, there's no question
doubt
about it.
that. So at this point, I'm taking a lot of things that he says at face value, not just with a hope and a dream,
and
what face value.
And what I'm doing is saying, hey, here's the infrastructure behind it that you got to do. Let me give you an example. Just a quick, simple example. I sell widgets for a living, and I'm going to project that I'm going to sell 1,000 widgets this year. The smart guys say, okay, I've got to have enough inventory so that you can sell 1,000 widgets. If I don't give you 1,000 widgets in inventory at some point, you cannot sell 1,000 widgets. If you want to sell 1,000 widgets and I bring in 100 widgets, you're not going to sell 1,000. So what I'm trying to do by education is build the support for what we're talking about here. I'm not downing the plan in any way, ladies and gentlemen. I'm for it. I'm just telling you what it's going to take to bring it about in a meaningful way. If you want these things to stick and not just be, executive order ping pong between presidents, then you've got to get Congress to codify this. You've got to impeach thug judges that stand in the way and pretend they are the law. They're not the law, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, we talked about victims spotlighted. Trump also recognized several victims of all kinds of things. And really, he was the highlighted victim of it all to a great degree, James. And he highlighted that, too, very masterfully.
He did. It was near flawless. I could quibble at one thing that he said out of all that I heard. One thing, but I tell you about.
And what's that? What's that one thing? Let's hear that, James.
When he talked about when he cited the soldiers at Gettysburg and Normandy as the example, the premier example of what the American Army can do. I think it's certainly. My position that the United States shouldn't have fought in either of those wars, and perhaps in the second one fought against the communists. But besides that, that was.
What
do
you think? Do you think he's greater than George Washington?
He's probably. Here's what I'll say. No, he's not. George Washington literally changed all of history. There's just that's
well, and George Washington had the ability to literally be a king and turned it down. And when he was done with his second term or whatever else, he just walked away, right?
That's right.
To his credit.
So you can't really compare him to that. But I would say if the rest of his administration, this is again a big if, but if you get 4 years, like the first 40 days, he will be. Top 5, top 3.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. I don't disagree with that.
That's how big we're talking.
Here's my point, though. Rather than bring up that you're greater than everybody else, it'd be a little better if you were a little humble about it and said, "Hey, look what we've done. Let the American people place him in the top presidential candidates," and I support that. I think that's great.
Say, that's Trump being Trump. That's baked into the cake. People expect that. I don't even think it's just I don't even think it bothers people. I just think
it bothers me. It bothers me because it's an attitude. It's not a humble attitude or a grateful attitude. It's an attitude of the rich and famous. It's like, hey, I'm richer than you. I'm more famous than you. My daddy's smarter than yours, and we just go down the line. And at some point, it bugs, right? It bugs. Well, I'm not here to debate Trump against George Washington. I'm here to say they're both doing a phenomenal job, and I want to back both of them in what they do right and good.
If he hadn't had that, that ego and will to power, he wouldn't be where he is. I mean, you just got to think all that.
There's some truth to that, too. All right, now he also appealed to the folks of Greenland. Trump directly appealed to the Greenland folks and said you have a right to determine your own future. He previously offered to buy Greenland from Denmark. He says, we'll keep you safe, we'll make you rich, and together we'll take Greenland to heights never seen before. The president said the island is critical for national security. We're working with everybody involved to try and get it, but we really need it for world security, and I think we're going to end up with it one way or the other, he says. What do you say to that, James?
One way or the other is a very interesting way to put it, and I think the Panama Canal, I'd be for just going down there and taking that by any means necessary type of thing. I want to answer specifically about Greenland because there's an important thing here that people aren't thinking about. But I just want to say about the judges you mentioned a second ago. If these judges that are trying to impede Trump's actions, if you can expedite these things to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court, his court, I mean, he nominated he put in the majority of the court at this point, then that could be moot. So it's going to be the Supreme Court's going to play a huge role in how the next 4 years go, because a lot of things are going to get kicked up to them, and hopefully they get kicked up quick and they get ruled on in Trump's favor. And then you're circumventing these circuit court judges who think that they can stop the will of the American people. Now, Greenland, though, I mean, what would that situation look like? Does it become a state? Is it just like a property like Puerto Rico where they're not really full citizens? Because I think that's what you're going to want. You're going to want it to be some situation.
I know your question. I don't know the answer yet, and that's kind of the question. When you say you're a self-determining people, personally, I would come back and say, look, we'd love to join you, but we want to be a state.
And you don't want that
we
if
want
you're
full-fledged statehood. If we're going to do it, we want to be equal with everybody else coming in the equal footing clause, right?
You're going to want what the Trump administration should want is for it to become a territory like Puerto Rico, where you've got dominion over it. You can do what you want to do with it, but they're not brought on as full partners. We are doing a March Around the World series during the month of March on my program. It's called March Around the World. You get the cleverness in that title. But we interview exclusively guests from outside of the United States. So last week we interviewed guests in the United Kingdom, Puerto Rico, Brazil, and Canada. And a thing brought up to me by the guest from Canada is that, all of this talk about Canada becoming the 51st state, and I think that this would apply to Greenland too, is you don't want Canada to become the 51st state. And the reason for that really nobody's been talking about is that, number one, Canada has roughly the population of California. Now, it's bigger than the United States in terms of land mass. So it's, it's just this massive place. The United States has, hundreds of millions of people. But Canada, even though it's bigger than all of the United States, is still only the population of California, about 40 to 50 million total Canadians. But California has 50 congressmen, and Canada is left-leaning. So if Canada did become hypothetically the 51st state, and we both agree that I think that that's hyperbole, that's done to sort of make Canada a little more. He does it to rile Trudeau up because he likes to do that. And he also
by the way, the current population is 40 million in Canada. It's almost identical to California's population.
Perfect.
You're exactly spot on.
And so he does this to rile Trudeau up, and I think to make Canada hop on the security bandwagon and secure their borders and things like that. But my guest was saying from Canada, you don't want Canada to be a state, because if it was, you're going to have 2 more Democratic senators in perpetuity because Canada's left of center, and you're going to have the majority of those 50 congressmen being on the Democratic side. I think that would be true for Greenland as well.
Very serious questions, ladies and gentlemen. Hang tight. When we get back, I want to talk about the letter from Zelensky. That was a critical component, too. And this is where Trump, you think what he does is goofy, and then when you back into it, you go, there's more here than meets the eye. Trump seems shallow on the surface to some of the clowns out there, but when you really dig into what Trump does, he's got a very intelligent, deep side to him that we're just discovering more and more about as time goes on. We'll talk about the Zelensky letter in seconds with James Edwards, thepoliticalcesspool.org on Liberty Roundtable Live.
protecting your liberties. You're listening to Liberty News Radio.
News this hour from townhall.com. I'm Rich Thomason. A presidential proclamation.
America is back.
And so is Donald Trump, the president, on Capitol Hill last night, delivering the first major speech of his second term, declaring the golden age of America has only just begun.
Addressing a joint session of Congress, the president said his new administration hit the ground running 6 weeks ago.
It has been nothing but swift and unrelenting action.
He also laid out his agenda to combat illegal immigration, cut the size of the federal government, and impose tariffs, something he acknowledged may cause some temporary pain.
There'll be a little disturbance, but we're okay with that. It won't be much.
The president also announced that Ukraine's leader is ready to return to the negotiating table.
It's time to end this senseless war.
Greg Clugston, Washington.
Senator Alyssa Slotkin of Michigan delivering the Democrats' response to Mr. Trump's address.
We need a more efficient government. You want to cut waste? I'll help you do it. But change doesn't need to be chaotic or make us less safe.
Some of Slotkin's fellow Democrats far less measured in their response. They heckled the president throughout his speech. One of them jumped up, shouting and waving around a walking stick. That lawmaker had to be escorted from the chamber by the sergeant at arms. Governor Tate Reeves with word of 2 deaths in Mississippi after powerful storms raked parts of the state. Parts of Oklahoma and Texas also took a pounding, suffering a lot of property damage. Blinding dust storms in the southwest, blizzards with whiteout conditions in the Midwest, and all of that unsettled weather now moving to the east. On Wall Street this morning, stocks at the moment are mixed. The Dow is trading about 60 points higher, while the NASDAQ Composite Index 13 points lower. More on these stories at townhall.com.
We all hear the radio ads about the IRS. They tell you to be afraid, to be scared, and they try to frighten you into calling. I'm not here to do that. Tax Relief Advocates is different. TRA is here to tell you that if you owe money to the IRS, whether it's $5,000, $50,000, or $500,000, we have a solution. It doesn't matter if you're sitting in your car, at work, or with your kids. No matter where you are, call now.
800-583-0141.
Don't lose hope. TRA can eliminate or reduce what you owe to the IRS.
Generous programs are now available that can give you a fresh start.
Our passion is taxes and helping individuals fix their IRS problems.
We have over 1,000 5-star reviews on Google and an A+ with the Better Business Bureau.
You don't need to be afraid of the IRS any longer. End your tax nightmare today by visiting us online at TRA.com or call
800-583-0141. That's 800-583-0141.
Tax Relief Advocates. Real solutions for real people.
In the spirit of 1776, here's your chance to own a piece of history and show your commitment to liberty and justice. Introducing the beautiful, high-quality leather wallet, crafted with precision and pride, featuring the official Constitutional Sheriffs and Peace Officers Association bronze badge on the inside. This isn't just a wallet. It's a bold statement of your values. Made with premium leather, it's built to last, just like the principles of our founding fathers. Don't wait. This is a limited edition. Once they're gone, they're gone. For $760, you can carry the spirit of 1776 with you wherever you go. Visit CSPOA.org to secure yours today. True patriots, don't wait. Get your CSPOA leather wallet now and join the movement to honor our Constitution and protect our freedoms. The badge and wallet for the CSPOA is a symbol of membership and should be used to indicate that affiliation rather than for any official or professional purposes.
As you are aware, America is divided over every fault line possible. This is intentionally fostered by those who do not love God, family, or country. We believe a peaceful future as a free people absolutely depends on civility. Clarion Call for Civility is looking for funding and volunteers at every level to make our hopes and efforts a reality. Please donate, sign our pledge, and help us in our sacred cause. Please visit callforcivility.com for more details. Callforcivility.com.
Bypass the mainstream narrative with Liberty News Radio at libertynewsradio.com. Engage with charismatic hosts live or on demand. We cover the crucial news focused on God, family, and country. News that other networks simply refuse to use. Think of LNR's hard-hitting news and podcasts at your fingertips, anytime, anywhere. Join us at libertynewsradio.com. Empower your day with the truth, because the truth will set you free. libertynewsradio.com. Broadcasting live from atop the Rocky Mountains, the crossroads of the West. You are listening to the Liberty Roundtable Radio Talk Show.
It's an incredible thing, ladies and gentlemen, from the perspective of yours truly, James Edwards, given the honor right here of bringing Liberty Roundtable live back from the break. My good friend Sam Bushman. It's just been an incredible thing from our perspective. Me, 20 years in radio. Sam now pushing a little bit closer to 30. And, you know, when you're the first over the wall, you take heavy damage. And that was us and a lot of the guests that you've heard featured on the show for so many years. And the credit may never be properly allocated, but I will tell you that Sam Bushman has played a role in what you're seeing today and will continue to play an important part in all of this. You all have, through your support. We have seemingly survived a long night, and this is what it's like to experience the dawn. It is just astonishing to see how much has changed in the last few years, but really when you look at it in widescreen, it becomes all the more remarkable, the things happening in Washington, D.C. Right now. Washington, D.C. actually doing things that are helping the American people. Never in my life have I been able to say that. Not really. I mean, even, you know, I was born in 80, the Reagan years, but not really. Not like this. Not like this. Now, going back to, let's get to Zelensky. We are covering last night's, I think this will go down as a historic address, not just because we actually liked it, but because it was, it represents such a fundamental about face on American policy on so many different issues. And, you know, you would have thought that out of, an hour and 40-minute address to Congress with Russia and Ukraine dominating the news cycles for the last several days as a result of the meeting in the White House between Donald Trump and Vladimir Zelensky, that he would have spent more time on that. He didn't really spend a lot of time on that at all. It was mostly, almost all, on domestic issues here stateside. But he did mention during his address last night that he had received a letter from Vladimir Zelensky, and I was up till about midnight last night, and so I haven't seen yet a response on that because I woke up and came straight in here to get on the radio with Sam. So it'd be interesting to see if Zelensky has confirmed or denied the fact that Trump's assertion that he's
confirmed. He's basically saying, hey, this went all wrong. I'm so sorry. This went wrong. We got to sit down at the table. I'm totally willing to work on a peace plan. Now, how serious it is behind the scenes, I don't know. But at least according to the mainstream press, this letter is real. And this is true. And he's saying the same thing publicly, internationally.
And I didn't doubt Trump's was telling the truth about that. I didn't doubt that at all. That's not what I was suggesting. It was just such a stunning about face compared to that pretty.
Well, here's what happened.
Interesting and
Trump,
needed.
Hold on. Here's what happened. Trump shut down the funding, and the guy came to his senses.
But, I mean, you go from 2 days from them yelling at each other to within 2 days he's already crying uncle. Because Russia will walk into Kiev if America doesn't say, hang on, guys, actually, you'd be stepping on our toes a little bit because we're going to get a $500 billion worth of goodies out of the Ukrainian soil here, so we're going to kind of not let you do that. And that's the deal they're trying to make, right? Zelensky wants Daddy to take care of him, but, the United States wants something back in return, and they at least want to get back to a break-even proposition on the $500 billion they've already sent over there. A lot of it, people don't even know where it is or where it went. But so that's the deal that they're trying to make, and it's really stunning that in 2 days' time you go from him being thrown out of the White House to him saying, "I'll come back."
Have you seen the parody I sent you on this, James?
I did. So I don't have it pulled up. Well, I actually do. I do have it.
It's comical as all get out, dude. Is what it is.
Yeah, this WorldNet Daily. Yeah, so I mean, but that just goes to show what a man of destiny can do. America's not getting pushed around on the world stage anymore, or if to the extent that they ever were. I mean, I don't want to say pushed around. Let me just say they're not having a negative. I should rephrase that. America was always sort of swinging its weight around on the world stage, but they're not doing it in a negative way anymore, as has been the case for so long.
Which I love to see.
And so that is a remarkable and rapid 180 from Zelensky. Get kicked out of the White House one day, and by the end of the weekend, you're coming back and ready to talk. That's strength. That's strength because I'm all for being diplomatic, and
and they're pushing for peace, so it's peace through strength in a literal sense as well.
Well, I had a member of the European Parliament on my show last Saturday, and he said what we may have witnessed is the beginning of the end of NATO, which I hope is true. Dwight D. Eisenhower spoke with the incoming president, John F. Kennedy, just very briefly. But the one thing he told him was get the United States out of NATO. And it'll be interesting to see where all that goes. But what you're seeing now is an America First domestic policy, an America First foreign policy, an America First immigration policy, America First all the way down the line. So it'll be, we'll see what happens. And why? And it's like Trump always said, why not be friendly with Russia? Why John Bolton, the odious John Bolton. I mean, I think you could probably make a very serious case that John Bolton has been guilty of treason in some of his past actions. But he was talking about. I have a quote from him. What did this guy say? NATO was established to counter Russia, and it's so important that we stand with Ukraine to protect democracy or whatever their things are. But it was the United States that empowered what was then communist Russia. There wouldn't have even been a need for NATO if the United States hadn't gone to war in the 1940s to make the world safe for communism, which is exactly what happened. That was exactly what happened. So, I mean, why not correct this mistake now? Russia's no longer that nation. Say what you want to about the Nazi regime. If you believe everything that's ever been said about atrocities that have been alleged to have been committed there, it's a drop in the bucket to the number of people Stalin killed. I mean, I drop in the bucket,
question.
But those are our great allies.
And let's be clear, that's not a goal to denounce one or the other or anything else. It's just a reality check, right? It's a fact.
Absolutely.
Check.
No, listen. Absolutely. I'm not saying, no. Don't get me wrong about that. I'm just saying we went to war against Germany because of atrocities, but we partnered with a monster who had killed, at conservative estimates, 10 times more people than Hitler is said to have killed.
There's no question.
10 times more. Buchanan wrote a whole book about it, Churchill, Hitler, and the Unnecessary War. But so, I mean, we don't like atrocities, but we love the people who do it even more. And then you have to establish NATO. You have to establish NATO to protect Europe from the communist threat that you enable.
Be kind to Russia, open up diplomatic relationships, get out of NATO yesterday would be my instructions to everyone.
Yeah, because this is
involved.
Not the same Russia. I mean, this is not
Amen.
Stalin's Russia. This is not
and that
Marx
doesn't
and
mean that we think Russia's great. It just means that we need to have appropriate relationships with everyone. But this parody where Zelensky reveals who's been stealing U.S. dollars meant for Ukraine, it's funny. It's just a parody, folks. Understand that. But I'm telling you, it's so funny. He's like, I stole them. We got to have war. The reason we have to have war is I can't continue stealing money if we don't have war, Trump. The thing is funny.
It is, and but this is how it's always been with the military-industrial complex. This is nothing new, except now you got a guy in here who isn't just going along with the program, going on with the program of the military-industrial complex, perpetual war for perpetual peace. I mean, there ain't no business like war business. It's the biggest business there is, and I mean, without wars make a lot of people very rich, and that's why they're fought For the
and
most
the other
part.
interesting thing that he said in this parody, and the reason that I'm spending time on it is I know it's a parody and it's funny, but there's so many fundamental truths in it. It's not too funny in the sense that he's like, yeah, I can't keep stealing money from you guys if you stop the war. And then he basically said, where you been spending the money? Well, hey, we've been giving money to me and a lot of your what did he call them? What's the word? A lot of the people in the United States, bureaucrats and stuff like that, have been getting a lot of the money too. He's right about that, a.k.a. Joe Biden.
Well, how about this?
It's a little too truthful to be funny in that sense.
A lot of truth can be found in irony and in satire and in comedy, but it's interesting, isn't it? Democracy dies in darkness. They're talking about, Trump was this dictator who's going to, just completely shred the Constitution, and then here you have the same people supporting Zelensky, who has flat out, straight up, suspended elections. He's in the 6th year of a 5-year term. And of course the reason he's doing that is because if he does have another election, then he's out. And if the war ends, he'll have to have another election. It is really that simple.
Yeah, it's very interesting. And that's why I wanted to spend time on it because, man, there's so many truisms in it. It's not funny. Now, Trump brought up something else, and this is the last thing that I want to really highlight on the speech last night. Then I got a couple of other quick issues before the end of the hour. But Trump talks about a new shipbuilding office. Trump said a, quote, new White House office of shipbuilding is meant to, quote, counter China's strides in the shipbuilding sector. That's interesting to me, James. He says, we used to make so many ships. We don't make them anymore very much, but we're going to make them very fast, very soon. It's going to have a huge impact. We have historically been leaders in the shipbuilding industry. And now China is more than 50% of global orders. But the president said that's going to change. Tax incentives will help resurrect the industry. What do you think of that, James?
It reminds me, if you've ever seen the romantic comedy Pretty Woman with Richard Gere and Julia Roberts.
Oh,
there's
shoot.
a scene. This is just totally random, but it's just a scene that popped into mind when you were telling that, breaking down that story, where Richard Gere's character is meeting with this shipbuilder, and he says, "We're going to build ships together, great big ships," and they're anyway. Yeah, it's great. I mean, reindustrializing the might of your country is wonderful. Being able to process your own lumber, build lumber mills, build car manufacturing factories, build shipbuilding plants. They've got one right down in Pascagoula, Mississippi. If you go about just due south in a straight line, you'll run into the Mississippi Gulf Coast from where I'm at here in Memphis, and they have a shipbuilding yard. It's been there forever, since before World War II. And they build ships there, and it's an incredible thing to see one of these things. And I'm talking about real battleships and things like that. And it would be great to see America doing more of this, and while still cutting defense spending, which I think is important. This is a big concern about Trump. He's doing all these things in Ukraine so he can pour it all into going to war against Iran. But I don't see that. I mean, that is not the actions of an administration that's cutting defense spending by 8% for the next 5 years. That's 40% basically over the next term. That doesn't sound like a nation that's gearing up for another unconstitutional war.
Well, and all I can tell you is this, we need to bring back manufacturing to the United States. We should have never let it leave in the first place. They mocked everybody who said letting manufacturing leave the United States was a bad idea. Pat Buchanan, Ross Perot being a couple of them, Ron Paul, many others. And now we're seeing the truth, and we're trying to bring back manufacturing. I find that to be good news. And I feel like on one hand you say, well, do we need a White House office of shipbuilding? And the answer is for the military ships, probably. And there is some legitimacy to saying we've got to, make sure that our defense is strong. Now, Trump also said we could chop our defense budget in half. So we're almost to spend $1 trillion. Trump is pushing to make it $500 billion, and I support that too. We can do a lot more with less, James, if we're wise and careful and don't just send it to every clown out there that wants to abuse America and be on the dole for it. Zelensky was highlighted as just the tip of the spear on that. But this goes through all U.S. aid and everywhere, right?
That's right, and it's throughout every aspect of the government, every agency, every department, including the military. I mean, and just cutting out things. I mean, you think that this is a trivial thing. I mean, it's a very important thing, but it might be trivial to the entire budget. But cutting out all the DEI stuff, the transgender hormone therapies that they're doing for soldiers or had been doing for soldiers. I mean, all that is gone. There is not anything pertaining to DEI left in the American government.
Well, it might be trivial from a financial point of view, but it's huge from a truth point of view. James, the truth is this DEI stuff is a sham, is a scam, is a manipulation, is a dishonest betrayal of we the American people and what we stand for. It's fake news, as Trump would put it, and putting a stop to it is not only valuable financially, but every other reason under the sun as well.
And it's great for morale. I mean, you have seen recruitment skyrocket, where it just plummeted military recruitment, and who would want to be in the American military that has existed for so long now, where frankly straight white men, Christians, are basically put at the bottom, and everybody else is advanced because they check a box, not because they're the best suited soldier or the most qualified, and all that's just gone. Everything's just going back to a merit-based thing.
And thank the heavens we need that big time, and that's one of the biggest things that Trump has done. Now the Supreme Court orders Trump admin, so Trump administration, to follow judge's order on foreign aid. The judge basically said, hey, you can't halt foreign aid. You got to spend the money. I think what we need is Congress to start impeaching clown judges who think they're the law. They're not the law. They're supposed to interpret the law. And the law is the president has every right to determine what money gets spent. He should absolutely look at the expenditures and say this is not appropriate. What percent, for example, of U.S. aid money is spent on what Congress intended it to be? Some are saying it's less than 5%. And so I think Trump has every right about this, but the judges are going against Trump right now on these issues. We've got to rein in these judges, James.
This is why you have to just, as quickly as possible, get cases like this to the Supreme Court. And I think you're going to have favorable resolutions in the Supreme Court.
I agree.
Hopefully universally, but at least on the vast majority of things. This is one of the things that is so maddening about the current system, and surely it couldn't have been designed to be this. I didn't see anything you're a constitutional scholar much more than I am, Sam. Is there anything in there that says, like, well, if something really, you really want your ace in the hole card to stop something that the duly elected president by the will of the American people or Congress or the Supreme, you just find a judge somewhere and shop a case around until you find a liberal judge that you've never heard of in a place like Rhode Island to stop the American president. And
so a lot of people believe that the judges are there for life. Go read your Constitution. They're there for life upon good behavior. And if they violate the law by pretending they are the law, or they activist judge from the bench and everything else, all it would take is a couple of quick impeachments. We haven't used it very appropriately in America. It's only been done a few times. But what we got to do is impeach a judge or two, and I bet you the rest fly right, James.
That's exactly right. Bingo. That's it. And you're seeing heads roll. You're seeing head roll across government bureaucracies right now. These. But
imagine a couple of judges just flat out get impeached. The rest of them would start to fly right, or they'd face the same fate. And this is again. You got to have Congress double down and get it done. Where are they? They're literally on vacation and showing up at noon and all this kind of stuff, and they're getting $200,000 a year each to do it. It's a disgrace.
Couple of heads roll, politically speaking, with these judges, and you're right. The people are going to get the message real quick. I like what they're doing with these government bureaucracies, where Elon Musk has these, this staff of 20-year-olds. I mean, this is literally happening.
Hey, man, they're computer geniuses. They're tearing it up, buddy.
Well, these bureaucrats are coming in for like these tribunals, and they're walking into a room, and you've got like 3 20-year-olds, and you've got these bureaucrats are given like 90 seconds to justify their job, or they're fired on the spot. I mean, this is like the emperor giving you the thumbs up or the thumbs down. So, I mean, you can do that with federal judges too. And if there's the will to power, you can do anything. And there is a will to power right now for Trump's agenda. And
that's why we need to have the people understand. Your mandate wasn't back on February the 5th, or I'm sorry, on November the 5th or whatever. Your mandate is ongoing. And your mandate ongoing means you got to get your head in the game. Let me give you a quick example to end the hour. China says that it's ready for, quote, any type of war. with the United States. That's according to the BBC, so don't blame it on me. But I'm just telling you, this is an example where, hey, someone needs to rein in China and say, you clowns are out of control. What are you talking about war for?
Yeah, I mean, and I would be interested to know the context of that. But, of course,
well, they're talking about tariffs right now.
You don't want a war with the ant people. I mean, they could come over here and beat us all to death with paddles. There's so many of them. But, yeah, I mean, a tariff war, let's get it on, I guess. I mean, I don't see how they're going to benefit from bloodletting any more than we would. But, I mean, what's fair is fair.
It's a fool's game, and that's why somebody needs to challenge them and go, you guys are off your rock crazy. We don't need a war. We don't need a tariff war. All we're doing to you is what you've been doing to us for decades.
And that's it. That is it.
And let's be honest about it, folks. We're not escalating this. We're just simply saying either stop doing it to us or we're going to do it to you. Take your pick.
So, I mean, China, for all these years, we've had this America Last policy, and it's been through Republicans, Democrats alike until Trump, where they dump all this, crap that they make. You see it at Walmart, even if it's something more serious like cheap steel. I mean, China's been able to dump all of that here, make all those profits and no tariffs, whereas our goods over there are tariffed. What's wrong with the reciprocal agreement, no more, no less than what you're doing?
It needs to be articulated to the world exactly like that, James, that you clowns are talking about war. You're off your rock crazy. Quit being so extreme. The whole world will be against you if you do. The fact is you lowered the tariffs on us, and we'll go ahead and work at it too. But in the meantime, we're going to match what you do. And that's all Trump's really doing. He's just changing the game to where we're not last anymore.
He said it. He said it that way last night with regards to,
and he's right.
If ours is this high, yours will be this high. And
yeah. And I think it's a smart move. And I applaud it, James.
But I can understand the Chinese not wanting that because they've been, just getting fat while we've racked up our debt. I mean, they've got more money than they could ever. The richest, one of the richest nations in the world, the richest. So, in terms of trade profits. So, I'm sure they want to keep the deal they've got where they can charge us to make all the money off of us and they don't get tariffed, and that just doesn't make much sense.
That's coming to an end under Trump, and wisely, rightly so. Final tidbit before the end of the hour. I just did a video. So check out libertyroundtable.com for live short videos. My latest one, though, is this. I don't know if you know this. There's a girl. She went to college. She graduated with honors. Problem is she can't read and write, so now she sued the education system in the state of Maine. Or no, is it Maine? No, it's not Maine. It's Connecticut. And so she can't read and write, but she graduated with honors. Now she's suing, James.
What a fun way to end a lot of news these 2 hours. There's the cherry on top of the cake there, folks. And, again, it's been like drinking news out of a fire hydrant since the turn of the year. And I don't think it's going to slow down, Sam. I mean, and this is the thing. What's the forecast look like by the time we're back together mid-month or, even in early April? I mean, things are happening so fast. Can this breakneck speed be maintained?
I think in many ways it can, but it's going to require Congress to get aboard. It's going to require states to get aboard and double down. It's going to require the American people to be involved in meaningful ways. For example, when a great piece of legislation comes up, how many Americans double down and back their congressmen and senators and say, get involved in a meeting, get this done? And if a bad bill comes up, how many of us are going to help and push and shut it down? The more we're engaged, the faster this is going to go, the more meaningful the results will be. I'm just telling you right now.
Quick headline, just breaking news here. As we said, this came out 2 hours ago. Supreme Court rejects Trump administration's bid to avoid paying U.S. aid contractors. Here's just 2 quick sentences. The Supreme Court on Wednesday, that's today, backed a federal judge's power. This is exactly what we were just talking about. A federal judge's power to order the Trump administration to pay $2 billion to U.S. Agency for International Development contractors. In doing so, the court, on a 5-4 vote, which I just said I didn't think that this would happen, rejected an emergency application filed by the Justice Department after the U.S. District Judge Amir Ali issued a series of rulings demanding the government unfreeze funds that Trump put on hold with executive order. So the feedback
we need to start impeaching Amir Ali is what we need to do. Send a clear signal to all these clowns. Hey, you guys are off your rock crazy.
Well, the Supreme Court just ruled in his favor against Trump.
Then we got to start impeaching those guys too. But here's the deal. Here's the deal. In 5 seconds, if Congress created a new law or a clarification of the law, it could mitigate the Supreme Court in an instant. You got to have Congress engaged, people. I'm telling you right now, that's the missing piece in this Trump solution era, is we got to have Congress get involved in meaningful ways. We are a representative constitutional republic, and therefore we got to put pressure on them, and then they need to do our bidding, or we need to make them pay at the next election and elect somebody else. We've got a clear role, and we better get engaged in the culture war, and we better do it fast. For James Edwards, thepoliticalcesspool.org, and yours truly, lovingliberty.net, God save our republic.